With me is Christi Jackson, an immigration lawyer from Laura Devine Solicitors, who provides specialist advice on all aspects of immigration to the US and the UK. And joining me from Washington is Sanam Andalini. Sanam is a British Iranian who has lived and worked in the US since 2001 and works with people from the Middle East, particularly looking at conflict resolution. Sanam, good to have you with us. Firstly, just give us your reaction to what's happened over the weekend, how you and your family are feeling about this executive order.
For us, it's been, thank you very much for having me on. It has been the most unbelievable roller coaster ride of a weekend, because basically from Friday night to yesterday evening, suddenly most of us who are here as dual citizens, British, Iranian and others, had the feeling that we weren't able to leave the country and be guaranteed re-entry. So it was this question of a choice of staying here, and for me personally, staying here and being with my kids, or wanting to travel for work and for family reasons to visit my mother in London, and you know, risking not being able to return here back to my family. So it's been an unbelievable weekend of just uncertainty and incredible fear and deep insecurity about really how much protection do we have and how much protection does the UK government give us if these things are going to continue.
Christi, what we're hearing there and keep hearing is that there is a huge amount of confusion. What issues particularly would you now like to see clarified?
Well, I think we have the confusion on whether or not permanent residents can be admitted, regardless of their country of nationality. It does seem that there's been some weighing in from the Trump administration that permanent residents shall be admitted. I don't think that's being applied consistently across every port of entry. Similarly, we have the dual national problem. The executive order designates that the 7 countries that the people who are affected are from those countries. And the problem is we don't know what "from" means. Does that mean that they were born in those countries? Does that mean that they hold a passport now? Or does it mean that they once held a passport? They didn't clarify what that means. So we don't know. It is left up to the interpretation of the Customs and Border Protection officers at the ports of entry, and as we're seeing, it's caused chaos. They weren't prepared. They didn't know about this ban being implemented on Friday. Of course, it was preceding a weekend, so we were left really with a weekend of mass chaos across the country, with immigration advocates trying to help clients and non-clients to figure out what was happening. And in some places, they're being admitted, and in others, they're not.
Sanam, how does it make you and your friends and family feel about your position in America as well, and whether or not you feel welcome?
That's exactly the question. I mean, I'm a British citizen. I'm very happy to be a British citizen. I've always felt that that's a passport that protects me wherever I am, and that's really how many of us have felt. And then all of a sudden, the stories that we've heard, not only about this question of if you leave and the immigration officer that comes back, really you're at their discretion or in their hands, but other stories of people's social media and Facebook being checked and their political views being asked at the border. This is deeply un-American, first of all, but it's also extremely alarming, because at that point you really are the most vulnerable. And you wonder who is there, and you know, literally overnight in the last 48 hours, our sense of security and safety has really been rocked, I think.
Christi, there is this talk about extreme vetting.
Yeah.
Isn't it pretty extreme already, what people go through?
The refugee program, typically the background checks will last 18 to 24 months. It's a significant level of vetting, and it involves many agencies. They're doing that for visa applicants, both non-immigrant visas, visitors, and immigrants.
So what Sanam's describing, people checking their Facebook pages, their social media, their contacts, that's already happening.
It does happen. Yeah, it does happen now. It happens in the visa context. An applicant for a visa who goes to the embassy often will be Googled. That's well known that happens. And their social media checked, but the same on entry. This isn't something new, so we don't know exactly what extreme vetting is, when what we're doing right now is already quite significant.
Sanam, you work with a lot of women, a lot of activists all over the world, from the Middle East too. Are you concerned that their work will literally be stopped because they won't be able to travel to the US, perhaps for their voices to be heard at various forums?
I'm extremely concerned about that because the women I work with, Yemeni, Syrians, Iraqis, basically from all of the countries that have been banned, are the ones who are at the front lines of dealing with extremism, with Daesh and with other radical groups. And the idea that we're not going to be able to have them not only in Washington or in the US to speak about these issues, but at the UN. This is something that is front and center for the UN to deal with and for us as an international community. And again, as the British government, as a member of the Security Council, as a government that has been at the forefront of pushing certain policies and championing certain policies around women, peace and security and so forth, to suddenly say, you know, are we going to be able to have these colleagues at the UN in March, coming up at the annual Commission on the Status of Women meetings? And if we can't, if UN member states citizens cannot come to the UN to speak for themselves, then, you know, should the UN be holding these meetings elsewhere? Should the UN be moving? These are significant questions, because I don't think that the ban is going to be limited to, first of all, to these countries, and secondly, the uncertainty just creates even more chaos for everybody.
Christi, I've just been looking at the advice from the Foreign Office that says it's your responsibility to know and understand the entry rules before you travel to the US. This presents a problem because of the confusion. But what advice would you give people?
Yeah, so I think that it is doing your homework, knowing that it's changing literally by the minute, and that it's not being consistently applied across the border, across all borders. I do think that we're going to see a little bit more clarity as this week goes on, because I think this all happened over the weekend. So hopefully we'll see a little bit of clarity as the week goes on, and at least some consistency. But I think we also need to be aware that things could still change. New countries could be added, and they have indicated, because the countries that are currently listed aren't even ones that have had any terrorism-related activities in the US in 40 years, we may start seeing other countries added. So it really is a watch this space situation right now.
Christi, great to have your thoughts. And Sanam, thank you very much for joining us early in the morning from Washington. As Christi was saying, not all of those countries are there. We're going to be taking you to our chief international correspondent, Lise Doucette, who's in Saudi Arabia right now, not on the list, to get some thoughts from her a little bit later in the program too.